So here we have a scene, still background image, and a whale swimming through here. So we want to put this whale behind some of these trees, like coming through that area. And we also want the light of the scene, so the 3D light, to affect these trees a little bit, and then maybe put some of this volume light onto the whale too. Okay, so we basically want to integrate this whale into the background a little bit more. Okay, so first off, the scale of the scene, or yeah, the scale and the angle of the scene is a little bit hard to work with. Because you can see the floor is here and the camera is kind of pointing up, and it's going to be difficult to line things up. And also, this whale's huge, so if I just kind of start, check how massive that whale is, and then it starts clipping. I mean, I can change the clipping plane on my view here. Where it's here somewhere. Clipping. Um, uh, Hue. Clipping. Okay, so I can change the clipping plane so the whale doesn't disappear as I move around, but it's massive. I'm gonna just scale the scene down a little bit so that I can work with it easier. So first off, I'm going to just take this camera, rotate it a little bit more in a more friendly manner. So probably 90 degrees like that. Minus 90. Okay, I think that will be a bit easier to work with. Let's move it up. Okay, until, let's see, until I can see the whale. See, because the scene's so big, I really struggle moving things around here. Um, so let's move it up until I can see the whale a bit better. Okay, let's just grab the whale's root, so that armature, and scale him down, bring him down, and I'm just going to move him closer to camera. That way, he still seems really big in shot, but I have a smaller scene to work with. I can now orbit around and do things a little bit easier. I mean, it's still quite big. I mean, I want to try and see, at least see my camera with in relation to the scale. Okay, I'm just for a second going to open a 3D camera view here, so I can 3D viewport. I can see what we're looking at. So get tiny whale. Let's bring him forward until he feels big enough again. Move the camera in. Okay. Okay, so I think that is a bit more friendlier scale to work with. Um, I mean, now the whale is, if I make a cube, that's 2 by 2 meters. Okay, the whale's still a little bit big in actuality, but I think, okay, I'll be able to lay out the scene a little bit better. Maybe I can scale a little bit more. Let's see. Okay. All right. Now I want to create some objects for our background. Okay, so he needs to be in behind some of these trees. Let's start with the big ones here. I'm just going to make a mesh cylinder, and let's find that cylinder. Let's move it into shot. Where are you, cylinder? Let's make it big so I can. There we go. So I can get it into place. I'm actually going to select my camera, and just put my cursor there, just so when I create stuff, they actually appear close to my camera, and I can easily, manipulate things. Okay, so let's scale this down. Um, I would also wonder if the focal length of the camera is right. 35. Yeah, it's not too bad. I think it will work. Okay, so let's. Actually, I don't want that many polys on it. I'm going to make another cylinder. So, cylinder, I'm just going to make it 12-sided. So, we don't need that many polys. We're just going to project the background image onto it. Just move it into place. Okay. And we're going to smooth it out anyway. So it will sit just so the whale's kind of going just behind that tree. So let's put it maybe a little bit more forward. Okay. I don't need the top and bottom, so because when I have to subdivide this to be able to project the background onto it without warping, and if I do subdivide it and I have that top and bottom, I'm going to have to put in holding edges so it doesn't. Otherwise, if I use a simple subdivision surface, let me just show what I'm talking about. Okay, let's duplicate this. I have to subdivide it a lot, so I put a subdivision surface on it, the subdivision surface, and and if I put on simple, it's going to give me these weird little. Um, let's delete that. Okay. Um, okay. If I put it on simple, the subdivision surface, which is what I want because I don't want the thing to change shape, then I get these facets. Okay. Which don't look that great, but if I put it on Catmull Clock, it's nice and smooth. But this one, if I put it on Catmull Clock, the shape changes. Now I'm going to have to put in holding edges. And I'm probably going to, because it's going to be quite big, I don't really need that. And I'm not going to see the top and bottom. So I'm just deleting them to make the model a little bit nicer and easier to work with. Okay, I'm going to switch to wireframe. Wireframe, so just there. So that I can line it up with the tree a bit better. So let's see. It's a little bit bigger than that, so I'm going to scale up. Okay, that should do. No, it's still bigger. So there. Okay, there's a few, so let's duplicate this guy. S Shift Z to scale it only on all the axes except Z, and then line it up with the tree next to it. That tree is a little bit in, so I can move that closer. Sitting there, Shift Z. Okay. Okay. I'm going to do probably that one there too. It's even further back, so put it there. It's a little bit difficult to see, but once we have some light and stuff, I can tweak it more. Okay, so I've got those three trees in. Let's do some of the other side. Oh, that one I didn't Shift Z scale, so let's grab this one. Okay, so I'll have to line these up with all the trees that I possibly use. That's probably a little bit further back. Okay. And if they taper, get thinner towards the top, this one is a little bit angled. So I'm just going to duplicate it so I can have one to work with. But I'm going to have to angle it a little bit so it runs along that tree a little bit better. And it tapers a little bit towards the top. I might have to give it a few edges to get to our to to make it line up with the tree a little bit better. Okay, so it's going to take some time getting all of these guys in the right place and following the trees nicely. So I'm not going to spend too much time right now. I'm just going to roughing them in a little bit. That one's probably a little bit further away, like that. So I try and build a 3D environment out of these trees that match the background. Okay. Okay. So it will need some adjustments, some tweaking, and let's see. Okay. Okay, but I just want to get the basics in for now. Okay, so I probably need to work on the depth of them a little bit because they're not all sitting on the same depth away from camera. But there we go. We've got some of them in. We'll probably have to do a few more and finalize that up. Let's render and see what we got. Okay, we are missing an an HDRI, so I'm going to remove the whole world. So I'll probably add something else in there. Okay, something's still lighting the scene. I know the whale's got some light on him, so I'm just going to go to its shader editor and switch off its emission for now. Okay, there's still something else lighting here. Let's see if there's an area light or sunlight, any kind of light. No, okay, sorry, it was just the world being over. Okay, so now we don't have any lighting in here. Um, let's bring in the world light just so I can see what I'm doing for a second. So now I need to put textures on these things. Okay, and they are smooth. Okay, now I'm going to put the background as a texture. So I just want to get this one a little bit better. Okay, they're not perfect though, so obviously the trees will need a bit of work still. But I want to get the background as a texture on these objects. So they need quite a bit of geometry to do that. So I already have a subdivision surface on here. Then I'm going to add a, a camera projection, so UV project, okay, after the subdivision surface, because it might not even be enough there. So this is so I can get a UV. I already have a UV map. They should have made a UV map when I made them. So there's a UV map. I'm going to change that UV map so it aligns with the camera. So that's why I've got this UV project like that. So the UV map I want to change is just called UV map, and the object I want to change to is our camera. So our camera is called shot01 f spy. Okay, so shot01 f spy. Now that should have a UV map that's orientated towards the camera. I'm going to make a new shader. I'm going to call this project because that's the background we want to project on here. Now, normally, if I do camera projections, I just bring the background image, which is probably called shot01 as well. Yeah, there it is. I just put the background image straight into there, and we'll see the background on. So there's the tree on it, but that won't be affected by light. So I actually do need a shader on there, and now it's very specular. So trees on specular, so I'm going to drop that specular a bit, push the roughness up, and that will give us yeah, some texture on the background texture. So it's obviously not lined up properly because you can see some sky area. So again, I might just need to tweak these a little bit so that it's just bark. Um, but let's add the same materials and like the same modifiers, materials, and everything to that one. So let's see. Select all of them. Select that one last. So I hit Control L to link. I'm going to link materials, and Control L to link. I'm going to link modifiers. Okay. So if it seems a little bit warped, and these trees are really dark, so I can't really see if the textures are warped or not. But chances are they're not. They are a little bit warped. Then you need more um, subdivision levels. They seem okay. Okay, you can see they need a bit of tweaking because they don't line up perfectly. So afterwards I'll probably go in, add something like that, and just make sure that those edges line up with the tree nicely, all the way through. Okay. Alright, so now we have, I'm going to go back to the world light and just switch it to 0, so we don't have any lighting. And if I now add a light, let's put a point light in real quick. Point light, and put it between these trees. Um, and let's push up. It's so it will light the whale and the trees. So you're kind of getting relighting, and the trees will now cast shadow onto the whale, um, which is kind of cool. So if we look at that, so it will feel like your whale's more in that shot. Okay, obviously the lighting's a little bit doesn't match the background well, so that's why it's looking a little bit odd. Um, but that's the plan. So now we need to kind of just get the right lighting in. So I'm going to put in an area light, put it behind the whale. Let's see. So the light's kind of okay. Maybe a little bit higher, a little bit in that direction, and point it towards the whale. And then let's push this up a lot. Okay, let's push it up even more until we start seeing something like it. So there's some light falling on the whale there. It's maybe a little bit higher. Okay, so now we're getting that backlight on the whale from, and we get some shadows on there. These feel very specular still, so they don't look like the trees should. So maybe I'll just drop the specularity. We'll have to adjust the shader to get nice lighting, but we'll see, because they do tend to look a little bit 3D now because of their edge quality. But it's okay. I'll try and sort that out a little bit. But that shadow is quite nice. Okay. All right. I can probably take that area light and give it like a little bit of color so that the color matches in the background. And then let's see what the whale's actual emission will do. Okay, because the whale himself is casting light in this. And it does, there you can see it coming out a little bit. But I think you could also maybe add a light, like a point light on the whale. So if I go light, point light, and put that like where the whale is, and push it up so that it might not. I can switch it off so that the point light doesn't affect the actual whale, but as you can actually animate it. There'll be, or you can probably add some particles that emit light that will come through these trees and things. There's loads you can do with this now because we have the 3D geometry. Okay, so I just want to kind of create a little bit better shader on these trees because they look so specular. So let's do something like let's make a Musgrave texture. Okay, and I'm going to put them and add a normal map. Put the Musgrave into the not a normal map, sorry, bump map. the bump into normal, height into height, scale that up. Okay, we can drop the strength so it doesn't look too fake, but at least now we're going to get some detail coming out of the edges of it. Maybe drop the specularity a little bit as the light goes past there and as the shadows come over. There's that area light. I'm going to push it up even more. Okay, so that helps a bit. It's kind of cool. Let's take this guy and just make it bigger so it's a bit softer. I left that point light in there by accident, but I kind of like what it's doing there. I'll make it a little bit subtler. It's just kind of like a little light full of something like that. Okay, so now we're getting some texture on here. I might also just want to mix in a bit of a different color. So let's say mix shader, plug that in there, add another principled shader, plug that in there. Okay, drop the specularity on that, give it a bit of color, so like a dark tree color, and then that's a bit too red. Let's drop the saturation, and now if I switch it all the way on, there's a little bit browniness, and there's the background. Wait, that's the okay. So I just want a little bit of it, just so when the light hits it, there's an actual color. Because the background image um, was so dark, I'm not getting a lot of color information from it. So I'm just adding a little bit of color to it. Okay. So let's see what that will look like as a full shot. Don't want to see the just like okay. So I think this whale probably needs a bit of detail on him, like it needs a bump, just so it doesn't feel it feels a little bit fake still. Um, these fins need to just as when they reach the top, they need to overlap in the opposite way. So that's the top there. So they need to be down. As they reach the bottom, they need to be up. Okay, so that they just overlap a little bit. Then, okay, it needs to, I can possibly just copy and paste those keys to there. Okay, and I can overlap those. Okay, but one more thing I want to add is just some volumetrics. I've got some volumetric lighting happening there, which is nice. I'm going to add to that. So I'm going to model them in. I don't just want to have a cube. So if I have a cube, I do this, and in the shader editor, let's make a new shader, call this volume. Take out the principled BSTF and put in principled volume. Okay, not in surface, into volume. Okay, I don't just want to do that because I can have a bit more control over things. Obviously, this is way too dense. You want the density to be like that. And it doesn't give me nice, fall-offs and lines and stuff. And if I don't want it to be as black, I usually put on the tiniest little bit of emission. Okay. What I'd rather do, it's not terrible. I could probably use this big one just as a starting point. But what I'd rather do is just build the shape that I want out of this. So let's make it nice and small, and then take this edge, move it out, scale it up. So I'm actually building a shard out of it. see what it does. Let's put it where the light is and rotate it the angle that I want. Let's see if that does what I want it to. Okay, it's not doing much, so picking up a little bit at the end there. So let's put up the density slightly. Okay, there we go. Probably want to make this starting position really thin. Okay, density I think is a little bit too high for this. Okay, we can also adjust the emission. Why doesn't it look the opposite of what I want? Okay, well let's get this one to work. It's like the density, I want it to, okay, it's the, I mean, I can obviously render these out separately and tweak them, but I'll have to render them with masks on the trees. Okay, let's see. Let's try. I'm going to put in a camera data and no, not camera data. Light path, and just see what happens if I take ray length into my density. Okay, I'm gonna not do that. Let's use a gradient. So the weird thing with the gradient is if I put a gradient texture on into my density, it doesn't really do what I want it to do. So I'm going to use a ramp, and the ramp's not. It's going to give me some black areas. Oh, okay, it kind of does what I want it to do. Something like that. Let's see. Okay, that's just really hectic. So I can take the white, make it a little bit grayer, and we can push that in there. I just don't know why the edge is so big. Usually, because we're on Eevee. No wonder. Okay, Eevee doesn't do volume shape very well. Okay, it needs to happen on cycles, and now I need a little bit more emission so it doesn't look so black. This shard, that's way too much. Okay, if it does end up being black, then actually I'm going to make a new. Ah, that's better. I might not even need the gradient. Um, okay, but there is quite a bit of blackness in it, so I'm just going to let's see if I emission. Okay, it goes quite grey, and if I don't want it that bright. Also, I'm going to actually change the emission color. It is a little bit bluer. Density. Okay, it's finding a balance between density and emission. Um, let's switch off emission real quick. Okay, density goes really black because of the lighting, and emission doesn't work if there's no density. So I'm just going to get something that kind of works, and then I'll use a gradient. Okay, so let's add that gradient in. Now, there's a gradient there. Put in a ramp. So the thing is with volume in cycles, I'm probably going to put this in both. I'm going to need to use the alpha instead of the instead of the color. Okay, then make this a bit grayer so it's not as bright. Doesn't. Oh wait. Okay. So because I'm using the alpha, I need to actually change the alpha channel. That. So if I make this a bit grayer, why isn't it working? There we go. Okay, so, and then I can push this probably to, there we go. Okay, so if I draw this down, it will go all the way. Okay, that's starting to do what I wanted to do. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, so that's what I wanted to do. Be bright and then get gradually lighter. Okay, so then I've got that one. Okay, from camera it doesn't look as good as it, so I probably need to push that up. Give it a little longer. Okay, so and then I'll duplicate this and line it up to where I want it. Duplicate. Okay, they're all very intense now, so I'll probably drop them down quite a bit. So I just want a slight bit. Ideally, if you render them out separately, then you can blur and grade them differently so they look more like that. But it's as a starting point, they'll work. Maybe I don't want them to originate in frame. I'll move them all like out of frame, something like that. And then in post you can add some lighting effects, some some lens flares and things like that. I don't like that one. Pointing directly to camera is not working. So let's put it more like that. Okay. It can be nice and thin. If they're too big, they look very fake. Okay. And a few more of those, I guess, would be nice, so that they can, you can even get them to land in front of the whale. Okay. So let's see. Cool. So we have another whale behind those trees. We get some lighting on the trees. If we put like um, some particles that's emitted and a lens flare or two, it should end up working quite well. Okay.